Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. We have with us Kim Cassar. She's here to talk about takeout products for restaurants. Now, it might seem like it's a Monday topic, but it's something that every one of us encounters at least once a week, if not longer. So, Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Okay. Kim, as we ask all our guests, first tell us a little bit about your background, then about your company, and finally your website.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me on. I've been in the food and beverage industry for about half of my career, which I hate to say is about 15 years. I started my career at Twinings Tea, early days straight out of college, and learned the wild world of specialty tea and specialty foods. From there, I actually went a big departure over to the pet business. And I sold pet supplies for about 14 years at Hart's Mountain, which was a wonderful experience. And then from there, I came back to the food business, selling kosher food actually for 4 years at one of the largest kosher food companies in the country. And then finally here at Kari-out for the last 2 years, really taking a big dive into the food service industry at a very interesting time in terms of pandemic changes and challenges.
Hmm. And your website for people interested?
Sure. Our website is carryout.com. That's KARIOUT.com. And Carryout is, it's a family owned company. We've been around since the 1960s. And we all started with, believe it or not, soy sauce packets. So, our first step into the food service industry was when our founder, Howard Epstein, decided he used to sell these ice pops in the plastic film. And he said, you know what? That would be great for a packet of soy sauce or duck sauce or mustard sauce. So he took the company into the food service industry in a big way. From there, it has exploded over the last several decades into a very big food packaging company as well. So we make everything for your food on on the move, to go packaging for food service. So from a plastic container to I happen to have a paper food container here, which is on the green side, to beverage carriers, we make it all.
Hmm.
So Carryout has prided itself on being entrepreneurial and really putting the customer first to figure out how we can service their needs. And let me not put it lightly, in the last 2 years, that's been a significant challenge in the industry between inflation and, of course, supply chain disruption. So, Carryout is proud to have hopefully emerged from the pandemic wiser, smarter, and still servicing our customers at a very high level.
Boy, that's one of the best spiels I've heard in a long time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's all true, I assure you.
Well, I'm sure, but you do it so well. You used to package it. Um, but having said that, we faced a lot of things. Let's start with takeout. I assume you go sell to restaurants, etc.
Yes.
Okay, and that being the case, restaurants have been pivoting to takeout. They're hopefully going back to in house dining. But what are some of the things that have happened that have affected restaurants and their customers?
Sure. How long is this program? Do you have an hour and a half? Well, at the highest level, let's just talk through what happened during the pandemic. So the world ended in March 2020, right? Everything closes down. That was by far the single lowest month that we've seen from a sales perspective. But from there, we watched the entire industry shift. So what happened? Schools closed, stadiums closed, everything closed. And we sell a lot of paper containers, specifically paper food trays that go to schools and stadiums and concerts and sporting events. That business fell through the floor, obviously. However, at the same time, takeout was now the only way for a lot of restaurants to survive. So, of course, now there's a huge demand for more takeout appropriate packaging, plastic packaging, we saw it go through the roof. I mean, we couldn't keep up with demand. We brought on 3 additional supply vendors, and we were still having a challenge keeping up. Again, paper is now through the floor, not selling a lot of paper. And prior to the pandemic, the sustainable packaging was a really big, important trend. As you know, during the pandemic, everything stopped. So people wanted foam, plastic, aluminum, anything they could get their hands on. And because Carryout has such a broad spectrum of products, we were really able to keep our customers in a very good position. Let's hope for a moment that the pandemic is truly on its way out. What are we seeing now? We're seeing a complete flip. We're seeing our paper business go through the roof. Why? Schools are open, people are going to concerts. Football season is about to hit and everyone's excited. So ramping up to get that paper supply back up was really challenging, and the demand continues in that space. Now let's talk about something that no one's talked about in the last year: inflation. In my 20 plus year career, I have never seen inflation at this level. It was astonishing. And not only was it astonishing, it came fast and it was frequent. We got price increases between freight from China going from $3,000 to $5,000 a container to $22,000 a container if you could get them. And then we saw materials increase. Resin went through the roof, paper went through the roof. I have the privilege of running both marketing and pricing for Carryout, and managing our costs during the last year has been a tremendous effort. Now, how does that affect the customer? Well, they're trying to manage that inflation as well. And it's been very hard for them. If you look at some of the quick service restaurants, for the first time in years, everyone increased their menu prices. Everyone. We saw it go from, a Taco Bell and a KFC all the way to that local mom and pop Chinese food restaurant, which we also service in a big way. And the mom and pops were terrified to move on price, but it got to the point where when protein is up 20, 30, 40% in cost, you have no choice or you go out of business. So how did that affect the packaging side? Well, we have to have the right assortment of product, because now these restaurants are going, I have to spend more on my food and my food ingredients. So you need to get better on your price for my packaging, because I can't spend there. And so the nice thing for Carryout is we've got a wide assortment, right? So if you need a lower cost product, I can give you a great foam product. I'll come back to that in a moment. Or I can give you a really durable plastic product, or I can give you a sustainable paper product. It really depends on what your budget is, and also who your consumer is, who your end user is. Do you have that consumer that's very focused on the environment? Are you servicing a lot of, Gen Zers? Well, they're going to want to see a certain type of packaging. So we've been trying to work with our partners to figure out what package can we give you at the right price that's going to delight your customer. And that's one of the things that we take very seriously at Carryout. So one of the things I just said was foam, styrofoam has been a challenge in the industry, right? So certain states are banning styrofoam. Believe it or not, there's still a big demand. But one of the things we have to do is see that legislation come down and make sure we're working with our individual distributor partners in those states to make sure that, hey, listen, this is going to be banned starting January 1st. Let's get you an alternative now so that you're not out of stock. So that's one of the things that we have to be looking at all the time. The other interesting thing we saw during I'll say the backside of the pandemic is the single-use plastic bans, right? Specifically, New Jersey, where I live, we have now banned single-use plastic, and I still can't get used to going into CVS and walking out with things in my hands, because I don't think to bring a tote into CVS. It's such an interesting dynamic in New Jersey right now. So what we did in the last year is we actually acquired a domestic shopping bag, paper shopping bag manufacturer, because we saw that the demand in paper shopping bags was going to increase as plastic starts to decline. We wanted to make sure that we had that supply ready to go.
Can I interrupt you? I live in New Jersey too, so, uh, but the point is, you can't do a plastic, but you can do a paper. But, what's the difference, except that one's
Yeah, you know what? The difference is the landfill, I think. So plastic bags, from my research, they are one of the biggest polluters. And I actually recently got to visit a composting facility in Austin, Texas, because we're very focused on sustainable packaging, and composting, in my opinion, is the next big thing we need to conquer. And I said, what are the things that contaminate the compost pile the most? Two things: single-use bags, foam packaging. And I said, wow, okay, that's something to keep in mind.
What what kind of package you got in? Uh,
Foam.
oh,
So if
foam.
styrofoam gets into the compost, it's much harder to sift it out. And in fact, what I was told is composting is still in its infancy in the US, as we all know, and it's still a very laborious process to remove any products that cannot be composted. So anytime there's a contaminant, if you will, it gets more expensive to get it out and therefore more expensive to compost. So these are some of the things from a corporate perspective that we're really focused on, is how can we make sure that every food occasion that we service is slightly more sustainable than the last. So to that end, we just invested over $10 million in our New York State manufacturing facility that makes our paper products. Why did we do that? We want to do more recycled paper, we want to do more compostable paper, more biodegradable paper, so that eventually when these get into the waste stream, they just break down and it's not a problem. We want to make sure we have the right solutions across our portfolio, but where we're investing in green technology.
I thought I read someplace that somebody had developed um, a product, a foam product that degraded.
Yes, they have. I have seen that product, and the challenge with that product, can you take one guess with what the challenge is? Cost.
Oh,
Very expensive. And to go from a foam product that maybe isn't very environmentally friendly to that product, it's probably a 200% jump in your cost.
mm, mm. But everything has a cost. It's what.
Absolutely. And I secretly hope that as food prices eventually come down, that we'll be able to get the customers to pick the little bit more expensive but greener solutions that we sell. So and of course from our side, we're constantly working to get that cost down so that it is a viable option.
But I guess the next question is, does it help the restauranteur to say I am um, biodegradable conscious or not? I mean, that's an argument I often have. I don't care.
I think, well, I think it's multifold, right? I think it certainly starts with your end user, right? If you have a consumer who is very concerned about the environment, that might be a decision point for them, whether they go to your restaurant or someone else's restaurant. Now, is that going to affect my local Italian restaurant down the block? Probably not. Is that going to affect one of the large QSRs, quick service restaurants, who are across the country and use a lot of packaging? Absolutely. So where we see change being driven is by some of the largest QSRs in the country saying, we have to do better. Our consumer base has told us we need to do better. And Carryout, as our partner, we need you to help us with that next solution. So we've got a lot of partnerships right now working on that next generation solution.
But what would be the next generation solution?
I mean, if I told you, well, I think paper is certainly one of the most important pieces. Paper is getting better in terms of coating paper products. I'll grab this product again, with a coating that is not plastic based, so that it can compost, it can break down. Now that coating is more expensive than a plastic coating, but for that restaurant that says, I need to make sure my products are that next level of sustainability, that's a great option. So this could be made into a fry carton. This could be made into a hamburger carton. It's really about the material, starting with a material that can break down and then putting it in the right occasion.
Well, if I'm hearing you right, when you say the coating so that it doesn't seep through.
Correct, because as you know, you can't just be sustainable. You still have to deliver the performance. And it's hard to perform when you're using ingredients that are recycled or, that break down faster. It's that balance, right? We want them to break down in the environment, but not while they're being used. So you've got to have that right combination. And that's our Eco Earth product that I just showed you. And again, it's just starting to get momentum because we finally have not retailers, well, some retailers actually, I won't mention who, but restaurants saying, I need a greener solution. I'm in California. My customer base wants to know that what they're using is not going to end up in a landfill. Help me solve for that.
Mm. Your website, stop right there, and your website again for people.
Absolutely, my pleasure is www.kari-out.com, and that's KARIOUT.com. Please come visit us. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, Carry Out Co. Take a look, follow us. We have a lot of great information. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find all of the links to our social media on our website, and we want to hear from people out there. What do you need? What's the next trend? What are the unmet needs that we can assist with?
Well, let's go now forward. Do you do straws?
That is an excellent question. So we do straws. We actually have paper straws,
Mhm.
which are they're more sustainable, but the performance is certainly, as I'm sure I can tell by your smile, not exactly akin to what you're used to with a plastic straw. But we are searching out and have found some alternatives that break down in the environment that may be coming out in the future.
Okay, but it's ironic. When I was growing up, it was paper straws. Then they went to plastic, and now they're
Right?
going back to straws.
Maybe it wasn't broken.
Apparently wasn't. But saying all that, um, is it really necessary for the government to step in and say this is what has happened, or can it happen with private enterprise, which is the eternal debate in this country?
Yeah, that's a good that is a great question. Honestly, in my opinion, I think it depends on the voice of the consumer, right? Money talks. So if I decide to spend my money at that restaurant that has greener solutions, then other restaurants are going to figure that out and say, well, why am I losing business? Well, because you don't have that. I think there is a place for state register or regulations around this. There's got to be somebody watching the environment to say, hey, we see this as an issue and raise it as a concern. And that educates the consumer to demand more. So I have a, believe it or not, I have a lot of faith in this next generation because they are so focused on the environment in a really good way. And I think that their dollars will demand a change.
Hmm. Well, that's, I guess, the real question. Real question, because is it the social media that drives it, or is it?
Well, I think social media definitely doesn't hold it back. Why do I say that? Everybody has a voice in this country if you're on social media. Everybody.
But
And the
how many people actually do it? This is not for your discussion. It's for the politicals. But how many people are actively vocal versus the people? I happen to believe it's a minority that are vocal.
I think it depends on the region of the country, but I would agree that it's still a minority, but it's a growing minority. And again, it depends on where you are. If you're in California, that voice is much louder. If you're in, the southeast, not quite as loud.
Mm.
But again, at least what I'm seeing as I talk to end users and even my staff who is, of the younger generation, they've challenged me, Kim, what's our sustainability mission? So, well, we actually have a sustainability mission, and here it is. And you're going to help me to make sure that we live to this. It's a big concern. In fact, a lot of younger folks coming out of college are really wanting to join a company that they can believe in from a sustainability standpoint, from an ethical standpoint. It's again, I think it's a good trend slash
Mm,
change in what we've seen before.
okay. Well, we have just a few minutes left. Tell us some of the other trends that you see going on.
Sure. Well, the one piece of our business that we didn't talk about today is we actually make sauce packets. We talked a little bit about soy sauce and duck sauce. So, what we are seeing from a PC packet perspective is it's still a very strong business. Why? We make sauce packets for a lot of the QSRs. And what we're seeing is about 80% of the sales at quick service restaurants still through drive through. So that is not a trend that's ending in the US. I think the pandemic really put that on fire. You know, everyone's like, I'm just going to go get takeout. I'm going to go to the window. I'm going to get my food and not talk to anyone, not touch anyone. And I think secretly Americans were like, I'm not mad at that. I'm okay with not talking to anyone. I'll just go through the drive-through instead of being, online and being in the restaurant. So what we're focused on is making sure that we've got again the right supply to service that piece of the business. So what's been hot for us? Not surprising, hot sauce. So we make hot sauce, we make sriracha sauce, we do a lot of taco sauces for some of the big companies across the US, and that's just on fire and growing. So I'm personally a hot sauce fanatic, so it's one of my favorite parts of my job is I get to taste new and different hot sauces. But we're trying to get very clever in how we approach our different sauces. Why? The fastest way to update your menu if you're a larger restaurant is to throw a new sauce on there. Just pop it on your chicken sandwich, and now you have a different flavor, a different consumer, a different offer. So that's a big thing for us as we go into the future is really digging into that next flavor trend to figure it out.
Well, let me ask you a question. Um, if I go to Taco Bell and I take 10 of those packets and only use five, I throw out the rest. That because they say I can't put them back into the thing once I take them out. But more importantly, when you do squeeze that package, you always leave something there. That to me, that's waste.
I'm going to challenge you on that after throwing away the 5 packets, but we'll come back to that. There certainly is a little bit of waste in the bottom of that packet, but there's a huge use occasion for that. And it's funny, I've recently heard, I won't say my source, that the average number of packets used per taco at Taco Bell is 5. So you are right on pace, my friend. You're doing it like everybody else in a good way. Now I'm going to ask you to take those other 5 packets and bring them home and like use them on your eggs in the morning. It's just as delicious. Don't waste that. You can reuse it, give it to friends. You'll be very popular.
My wife, there's an answer to that. My wife's worried you're bringing home germs. So, but
Rub it down with an alcohol wipe. You'll be fine.
we're running out of time. So, first off, your website.
My website is www.carryout.com, and that's KARIOUT.com. Please come visit us.
Okay, 1 minute for your how you would like to leave the audience.
Well, I would just like to leave the audience with a big thank you to you. This was so much fun. I appreciate you having me on and having the opportunity to talk about carry out. If I leave you with anything, just know that carry out is again a family run business where we really care about our employees. We manufacture a lot of our product domestically in New York and New Jersey. So I'm very proud of that. And we're constantly working to do better every day. So please, please come visit us, visit our social, drop us a comment, drop us a note, and tell us what you're thinking.
Um, Kim Cassar, thank you so much.
Thank you. My absolute pleasure.